What are the changes that you have seen in these 5 years, the societal changes more so?
Well, I think I don't have to use my words. One of my friends, a political economist who teaches economics at Berkeley, and is a very famous political economist, very sane person, he puts it very neatly. He says, the Gujarat model of development had not spread anywhere in India. It has not been duplicated at all. But the Gujarat model of hatred has spread everywhere in India, and it is now the dominant model in Indian public life. We have a whole gamut of leaders whose real self, real opinions, real beliefs, real visions, I do not know. That's what they say because they think that will give them votes. It is all media driven. It is becoming like the American presidential elections. But Indian democracy is not oriented to that kind of style. The representational system is crucial to us. And the representational system has been bypassed. It was first bypassed by Mrs. Gandhi. National Herald, you may not be able to write this, but first bypassed by her. And the success of her introduced a new strand in Indian political consciousness, that you can bypass the complexities of politics by making a media-driven appeal to the voters directly. And the appeals increasingly have become hollow. And so this situation is extremely dangerous, not only for Indian democracy, but it allows, even within a democratic constitution, to have an authoritarian regime.
So how do you counter this? Sort of a different breed of leaders coming up and changing this. Do you see that?
That breed will not be easily allowed into the central portals of contemporary Indian politics. They will try to come in, and there is still place for them, I think. But for the moment, I think people expect a different kind of thing. It is not that new breed of leadership will change it. What will change it is my hope in the resilience of Indian voter, because they have withered such storms earlier too. Don't forget that even after exploding a nuclear device, even after winning the Bangladesh war, Mrs. Gandhi had to impose an emergency and lost heavily after that. So it is not that Indian voters do not understand this, but also in the meanwhile, the influence of media and the reach of the media has increased enormously.
And along with it, fake news.
And the Indian middle class is now increasingly a hollow middle class. The old established middle class might have doubled over the last 70 years, but the new middle class that has come in, except for this doubling, because it has grown, technically it has grown 6 times. We are talking of something like 300 million people in the Indian middle class. But the middle class was 50 million strong at independence, roughly. So it might have increased about 100 million, but not more than that. So the 300 million, the 200 million of them are not really middle class. They have middle class money, but not middle class values.
What do you think led to this change of these values, the erosion of values?
They didn't have the values in the first place. The middle class is supposed to keep up the values, social values. They're supposed to wait values when new values come in. Old values die. They are supposed to do the stock taking. They don't. This middle class is a different kind of middle class, and they don't make pretenses about it. There is not even the hypocrisy that they belong to the middle class and have middle class values. That was the case with earlier generation. So at least, even though in spirit they were not middle class, their children got an exposure to other kinds of values. They could recover some of the values. Like, for example, even if you go to any Bengali household, you will find 20 volumes of 15 volumes of Tagore's complete works, or even Shakespeare complete works, some CDs or DVDs of Ravi Shankar and Bade Ghulam Ali Khan.
Yes.
Even if they don't hear that,
But it's
they
important.
keep as pedals.
Yes.
So at least the values survive and have a chance of skipping a generation and coming back through your children or grandchildren. Now people are,
What led
casual.
to this?
Huh?
What led to this erosion, do you think?
That is very difficult to identify. I think there is the induced changes of a new regime, and increasingly the political regime is constituted by people like that. There are some exceptions, but I doubt whether Amit Shah has a true access to them at all. Or for that matter, Modi probably straddles. He's a middle class product, but unfortunately he is a child of the RSS. He has a background, so he has a very limited exposure to a world where different ideas, different views coexist, and nonetheless you have lively debates on that. So he would rather like to choke the dissent. And this is happening all around us. So people try to buy off television channels, people want to suborn, as they used to suborn witnesses earlier.
Yes.
Now they suborn media, the local language media and so on and so forth. We are financially unstable. So whom you give advertisements, whom you do not give advertisements, whom you patronize, whom you do not patronize, and so on and so forth. These that come into play. So in some sense, there is an attempt to introduce us and introduce the middle class, the univocal middle class,
Yes.
which cannot stand diversity.
Yes.
I mean, there always was a strong peace movement in India. Now it is criminal to talk about peace movements. Not even the opposition parties dare to open their mouth. Nobody is allowed to criticize the army as if army is sacrosanct. No sector of the Indian political spectrum is sacrosanct. Why should it be? No sector.
Yes.
Even the judiciary is open to serious criticism. And they don't go after them. So the upper ranks of judiciary can tolerate dissent. If even the gods to tolerate dissent.
Yes.
The 330 million gods and goddesses of India, they are not in best of terms with each other either. But they're tolerant to different kind of things. I mean, all we talk of 6 schools, major schools of philosophy in India, they have coexisted for centuries. Now, for the first time, you are hearing lectures on how good is a univocal society.
It shouldn't be.
That's what we are caught in, and this will be now difficult because it is also managerially more efficient. Development does that to some extent. One process which induces this kind of changes, we might not like to hear this, like is not pleasant thought, that wherever countries have looked for spectacular development, they have tried to close the system as far as possible, because that allows to control and manipulate the system better. This has been the case. I mean, I do not look towards the future with too much of optimism at this point. Though I am still hoping that Indian electorate will have its voice and have its say.
Okay, what do you think this BJP government will be remembered for in the future?
For making India the lynching capital of the world. All what America does, they have to do here. That is the golden rule of development. So America was the world capital of lynching till 1950s.
Yes.
So now, after 70 years, we have revived that tradition in India. I can give many instances of this kind. Many instances of that. I mean, huge number of the witnesses have turned hostile in the case of Sohrabuddin killing, Sohrabuddin's wife's killing. Sohrabuddin is a gangster. Okay, you have illegally killed him, like Yogi Adityanath has killed illegally. You know, this is free for all. I think that also is, I think, will lead to an increase in their vote percentage. But you know, what do you believe and what do you do not believe?
How would you rate BJP's performance in these 5 years?
I don't think their heart was in performance, frankly speaking. I mean, now they are saying they have performed very well, but I don't think their heart was really in performance. Their heart was in media. Their heart was in their public presence. Modi holds the world record for hugging every statesman. No Indian Prime Minister will be able to match him. It's like it deserves to go into the Guinness Book of Records. Guinness Book of Records.
If BJP comes back to power, what is the threat we fear?
I think the system will close even further.
Do you think
at the moment I feel. Maybe, because power also, power is a good psychological test of a person's character. At the moment he seems beyond any, he has nothing to learn from anybody, he knows everything. On every subject he talks, whether India is superior to Harvard in some economic calculation, things like that. I don't know where from he gets these ideas and wherefore how he thinks that you do not need knowledge. They have contempt for knowledge. They have place only for applied knowledge. Applied knowledge cannot come unless theoretical knowledge is there, because India has to have its own knowledge systems.
Yes.
This country has had its knowledge system for centuries, and they operate. That needs a different kind of theoretical orientation. That needs a different kind of exposure, not only to India, but also the Indic civilization. The Indic civilization also includes countries from Afghanistan all the way up to Vietnam. That's its spread. So you have to know something about that. You have to know something about other countries outside this. Hosting the otherness of others is a crucial principle of true cultural and political creativity.
Yes. Which segment has been hit the most by this regime? You know, whether
I think this is absolutely clear. This regime, of course, shares with the earlier regimes the fact that they have ill-treated or mistreated or ignored the Adivasis, and that's the first in list. Second, of course, the farmers. Third, of course, the Muslims. Advisory committee which Sonia set up was a very good corrective. A politician should see all parties and ultimately negotiable that as possible targets for negotiation. If America could negotiate with Taliban, I don't see why India cannot, government of India cannot negotiate with the Nakshals. And don't forget, 90% of the cadres, more than 90%, more than 95% of the cadres of the Nakshals are Adivasis. And against them we have deployed army. Army is those battalions which come from Mizoram, Nagaland, and so on and so forth. You know, now, in this kind of situation, I think the Adivasis are in double bind. You know, not only that, they are absolutely the forgotten part. Traditionally, they made no demand from the regime. Also, their demands are minimal, and they are also your guarantee for ecological health. So they don't allow deforestation. Didn't allow deforestation to go beyond a certain point. Mining to strip mining not to go beyond a certain point. But all these barriers have gradually fallen down. No. So that part of the story has to be taken. That here is a entire set of communities which have been rendered obsolete and disposable. Nobody looks at their future as that their future should be in their own hands. So that's one. As far as the farmers goes, I don't have to elaborate on it. Everybody knows that they are distressed because people want to reduce the farm population. They want to reduce this proportion of farm-dependent citizens in India. Idea of spectacular growth, not growth as such. Growth is okay. The idea of spectacular growth has brought in to the ruling elite people who stop at nothing, who think all these things which the NGOs plead for or the advisory committee of Mrs. Gandhi spoke about, they are actually misleading the regime. They are standing in the way of India's progress. This idea of progress is a fourth-rate borrowed idea of progress which cannot survive in an ecologically sensitive world where you are facing the other kinds of disaster all around you. It has no legitimacy, no sanctity anywhere in the world. They are like Trump's regime. They are trying to protect an idea or set of ideas which are doomed to die. Which are doomed, but that's not the way they think. They think they are in the forefront of knowledge, forefront of social intervention, so on and so forth. Now it will be difficult to restore it also, because all these people are there. All these
I want you to talk about that.
they will claim the usual tenure of a government job. So one generation is now doomed, more or less. I doubt whether they will really be able to retire them or kick them upstairs in jobs which are harmless.